Hello everyone, welcome to Rockstar Business World's interviews today, and I'm joined by Sir Tom Hunter. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
Excellent. Well, so good to have you here today, and thank you so much for giving up your time.
You're welcome.
I'd love to start by asking you just to share with some of our viewers. Obviously, many of them will know your story, but a lot of them from maybe other parts of the world may not. So if you could start by telling us a bit more about the history of Sir Tom Hunter and why you agreed to do the interview about giving something back to entrepreneurs.
Wow, right, okay. So I was born in Scotland, in a very small town, mining, deep coal mining. My dad was a local grocer. So I suppose my education to business started very early by working in the store. And therefore it just seemed normal to me to want to be in business. My dad was in business and that's what I wanted to do. But there was no real future in a grocery store in a mining village because deep coal mining basically disappeared from Scotland. But I came across training shoes, so sneakers. And I could see that they were beginning to become popular, but I couldn't afford my own store. So I basically made up a letterhead. I wrote to existing retailers and said I was a fast expanding footwear salesman, and one of them remarkably said, right, we'll give you a go. So I literally started selling trainers from the back of a van, and I was very lucky in that my hunch about the market was right. And but it took 5 years of selling from other people's stores and the back of my van before I could afford my own store. So 5 years, and then from there we opened our first store, and then we branched into sports clothing and shell suits and all these wonderful things. And basically we rode the wave, and by 1998 we were Europe's largest independent sportswear retailer, and I got somebody wanted to buy the business, a public company, and I decided after a lot of soul searching to sell the company. So I was only 37 years old, and I sold the company for over £300 million. So I had a lot of money in the bank, but nothing to do. So this was where I had to decide what was the next stage. And the next stage we basically decided was to continue making money, and we formed our private equity business, West Coast Capital. But we also wanted to give something back, and really give something back to those other entrepreneurs who were aspiring to coming through. Scotland has a very rich history of entrepreneurs, but in our near history is one of dependency and nationalised industries. So I'm determined that we're going to create a startup renaissance.
Absolutely.
And therefore I'm very passionate about helping others start and grow their businesses. Hence finding you and you asking me to do this talk, and that's why we're here today.
Absolutely. Well, I really look forward to the interview and all the insights and questions that are coming. So it's great to have you here. So obviously this is something that you did quite a long time ago, but I'm sure there are some great insights that you've got. We're going to talk about starting up now. The first question, starting out a business. Those of our viewers here who are watching this today, most of them, or some of them of course, will be at the stage where they're just about to start or they just have started. What should they be doing now to make sure that they are going to start well?
Okay, so if you're starting or have started, first of all, you've chosen an incredibly hard thing to do. This is not easy, but when it works, it is the most rewarding thing you can ever do. Hence my passion about helping startups. It's the riskiest phase of the business process, for sure, and it's probably the least understood phase. Hence the Hunter Foundation's backing for various initiatives in the startup space. So the first thing we always say to people is, find something that you're passionate about, because your passion has got to lead you. Because in order to be successful, you're going to have to put in an awful lot of hard work and hours. This is going to consume you. I'm not trying to put people off. I'm just trying to say that the people I've met who succeed, there's nothing beats hard work. Nothing. So find something that really interests you. And then you've got to work out, do I have a business here, or have I just got an idea? And taking it from the idea to the business stage is something I know you're very passionate about helping, and things like Rockstar hubs really do help. We back something called Entrepreneurial Spark, which again helps this early stage. Sales are the most important thing, and we come across so many people who want to get their business plan and put the last sale in the spreadsheet and get it right. What we say is go and speak to a customer. Even though you might not have it already, it's amazing with the right approach that potential customers will actually speak to you and say, well, I wouldn't buy it if it came like this, but if it came like this, therefore that is the best information. You know, sitting behind your desk, you don't learn too much. So get out, speak to potential customers, listen, learn, adapt. And if you fail quick and fail fast and start again. So these early meetings with, well, here's my idea, what do you think, would you buy it? You know, it is amazing who will actually speak to you.
I think so true, especially in today's market.
Yeah.
For a lot of our young entrepreneurs, that's the same advice that we give them. And, you know, why on earth, the question of doubt is sometimes is, well, why would that guy give up the time to give me that support? I always say to them, start your email request or your phone request with, I'm a young entrepreneur and I value what you've achieved, and as a potential customer, what do you think? And never before has there been such a desire for more established business people who could be potential customers to give up their time.
Indeed.
Great advice. Thank you. So you mentioned earlier going out and speaking to your first customer, your potential first customer, in order, of course, to get that first sale, ideally. Sales are the core of any business in terms of getting it off the ground and growing quickly. What advice could you give to our viewers here on how to generate sales as quickly as possible?
Yeah, so I mean, sales fix everything. That's the bottom line. In the early days, sales are absolutely everything. And therefore, you've got to find out if you've got a proposition or not. Because many people go, oh, well, if only this was happening, if only that were happening. If people ain't willing to buy, you don't have a business. It's as simple and as blunt as that. So, early stage, get out, knock as many doors. Even if you're not quite ready with your product or your service, listen, learn, adapt. You've got to immerse yourself in this market. What's the competition doing? Why am I better than the competition? Are we cheaper? Are we better? What's our differentiator? What's the customer proposition that says this customer really wants to buy this? So these are all questions, and as the entrepreneur, you've got to find the answers, and you've got to find them quick. And the way you do it is not sitting behind your desk. It's picking up the phone, it's getting out there, it's meeting people, it's listening to people. There's nothing beats hard work at this stage of the business.
Absolutely, and I think that's going to be a resounding comment throughout the interview because it is so true. The harder you work, the luckier you get. That's a term that I use. Would you agree with that?
Indeed so.
Excellent.
And you know, I heard a lot of things at the beginning, and it was definitely true of me. I was in the right place at the right time. But what we try and do now is find out where the right place is and go there. So don't leave it to luck. So if your business needs sales of this particular customers, go meet them, go find them.
Really good point. So I want to talk now about marketing, because linked to sales, getting more and more people aware of your product or service will help, of course, with the sales that you want to achieve. So many different ways that we can market or create awareness about our products or services. What are the ones that you enjoy? What are the marketing strategies that have always worked for you, or most of the time at least?
Well, again, I would say marketing is just about letting more people know about your great product or service. and once they know about it, they're going to buy it. You know, it's not some secret sauce that makes people buy something they don't really want to buy. So therefore, I mean, when I first started, there was no such thing as internet, which really dates me. But nowadays, you know, pros and cons of the internet is, one, you can get a global market, but two, you got to fight for your share of voice. You know, it's a busy marketplace. There's a lot of people looking to attract attention, but there are no hard and fast rules here. It depends which sector you're in, if you're a product or a service, and where it is. But again, understanding the channels to market, understanding how your customers, what they're looking at, and get in front of them. I mean, it's all common sense. But there are now more channels to market than there has ever been in the history of marketing, and therefore you need to understand every single one of them. And this doesn't necessarily take huge sums of money. You know, when I was growing my business, I had the benefit that I was selling Adidas or Nike, but I remember in the Olympics, Adidas had paid a fortune to be an Olympic sponsor, and Nike decided that wasn't for them, but they came in with guerrilla marketing to kind of steal away Adidas's thunder. So with a bit more clever thought, Nike, for a fraction of what Adidas paid, got more eyeballs onto their products, and therefore it's not always about how much you've got to spend, it's about how clever you can be.
That's a really interesting point. And of course, for the growing businesses, I mean, let's talk about social media, because you did say more marketing channels now. When you first started, internet didn't exist. When we look at all these various channels that have now, just as a side question, social media, is that something that your businesses are involved with? Do you do any of that or not?
Yeah, I mean, what we do now is we back entrepreneurs with not startups. It's the riskiest part of the of the curve, and hence why
we'll take care of that part for you. Once they've gotten through that risky stage, I'll pass them on to you.
But you know, we're involved in e-commerce, both in the software and the retail. So yeah, I mean, these businesses are experts on how to channel market their product, their service, down these various routes. Absolutely.
Right. So Tom, can I ask you about branding now? Because I think, I mean, you mentioned Adidas and Nike before. I mean, two of the most phenomenal examples of a brand that just with one tick or with 3 lines represents something that people want to associate themselves with. It's a difficult thing to do, but something that a lot of businesses do want to achieve is to create a brand. What does that term brand mean to you, and what are some of the things that we have to be mindful of if we want to create a brand?
Yeah, so a brand to me, it means it's something that Warren Buffett, who's probably the world's most successful investor, he talks about when he looks at a business to invest in, he's looking for a moat. He's looking for something that protects that business from all other competitors. And I think the thing that gives you the biggest moat is a brand. Now, what does it mean? If I look at e-commerce, where we invest in, a lot of e-commerce retailers come and they go, but if we look at Amazon, Amazon has built a brand. So what does that mean for them? I think it means it's a brand that you can trust. So first of all, it doesn't have any stores, so who are they, and am I willing to give them my credit card, and if I've got a problem, will they solve it? And I think Amazon, over a relatively short period of time, has absolutely nailed all these questions by having brand values that say, yes, you can trust us, and you can trust us, judge us by our actions, not our words. So when you do have a problem with Amazon, they solve it. And they solve it to the customer's satisfaction. And that customer, that satisfied customer, tells 10, 20, and then the law of big numbers kick in. Absolutely. So therefore, it's a long-term strategy. Sometimes you've got to take short-term pain when you're growing your brand, It may cost you money in the short term. In fact, it will cost you money in the short term. What am I talking about? Because you're going to have to satisfy your customers. But if you're in the business for the long term, you want this brand, you want this moat that protects and differentiates you from a very busy marketplace, then you got to invest.
And it's difficult to replicate, isn't it? I mean, there's something about a brand, the focus that you mentioned, Amazon is a great example, that they are so good with their customers. If there ever is a complaint or anything, they're on it, they fix it for you. What I love about what they do as well is they're always saying, you bought this last week, here are some fantastic other products, which from a customer they thank you for that, but for the business side of things they do very, very well. And it's, if you get it right, I think it's very difficult for other people to come in and say we're going to have great customer service, because there's something more to it inside the team to achieve that.
Yeah, I mean, why do I spend? I buy Apple products. I'm now hooked on them.
Yeah.
I know they're more expensive than something. There's probably something better, but I'm not moving anymore because they've bought my loyalty, because they've treated me well, and the thing works. Now I'm paying a premium for it, but that's something I'm willing to do. Now that is clever, and that is happening over again a relatively short period of time. I mean, it used to be, it took tens, hundreds of years to build brand values. Nowadays, marketeers are having to get brand values in quicker and faster than ever before.
And when it comes to exit, which we'll talk about later on, the brand value can add a lot of it. It can add a large premium to the sale. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, basically, brand should mean extra profit, which means bigger multiple, which means more money in the founder's pocket.
Absolutely. And more desire from other people to want to buy it. Absolutely. Great. So Tom, you've had to manage very, very large teams in your businesses. Companies that are watching this right now, they either they have existing teams that they're managing now, they have the goals or aspirations to one day run a large team. What would your thoughts be or tips to help these people watching? How can you get the best out of the people who work with you?
Yeah, I mean, this is the key. This is the absolute key. So first of all, I don't believe in big teams. Jeff Bezos, we talked about Amazon earlier, he has a 2 pizza box rule. If he's in a meeting and it takes more than 2 pizzas to feed the people in the meeting's too big. I have a 1 pizza box rule. Managing people is the most difficult, but the most rewarding thing that any entrepreneur needs to learn about. So the first thing, I started with myself, and then so building that team, an entrepreneur has got to look inside him or herself. They've got to, which is the easy bit, be honest with themselves and say what they're good at. The more difficult part, what they're not good at. And we have got to recruit to our weaknesses, not our strengths. We don't want people who look like ourselves. That's a nightmare. That is a fight waiting to happen. So if I'm good at sales but I lack finance, I've got to have someone to do that. If I'm very comfortable in one area of the business but not in another, I've got to recruit to my weaknesses. So one of the great examples was Bill Gates. Bill Gates is growing Microsoft. He didn't go on to be the chief exec. He became the chief architect of the software because he thought, I'm better at that than I am about being the whole chief exec. And that takes a bit of guts to say, well, I'm not going to be the overall boss. There's someone I've found who's better than me at that part. That takes great security, takes great self-confidence, but that's how great teams are made. And I wouldn't have any more in my team than 4 people reporting into me. Now, when you're starting, you don't have that luxury. You've got to have the people, and you've got to do every job, and you've got to run around. But this is for as you're growing your business. And I really firmly believe that one person cannot really grow a big business. Now, you see the Richard Bransons and you see the figureheads and you think, goodness, but they understand the power of the team. They understand the power of employing people who are better than them. And one person trying to do everything doesn't work in the longer term. So managing, recruiting, retaining talent, biggest challenge the entrepreneur is going to face.
But you get it right, the most rewarding.
And if you get it right, that's what will differentiate you. You know, the recruitment and the retention of talent, especially in the businesses I'm involved with, in the e-commerce space and the software space, you know, these people can go anywhere. You know, they're highly sought after. So we've got to find something which says to them, we value you, your input is really important, and this is your business, you're part of this. It's not my business and you're working for me, this is our business.
Absolutely.
But absolutely mean it.
So Tom, I'd like to touch now on funding, raising capital for organisations at different levels. There are many different choices that we now have that we could go down, but I think those that are successful in raising funding versus those that aren't successful have similar points in mind. What would your thoughts be around what does a company need to achieve or have ready to go if they're going to successfully raise funding?
Yeah, so again, I keep saying risk is part of the investment curve for any investor. Therefore, what are we looking for? We're looking for a business that has got at least some sales. They've got to have demonstrated somebody's willing to buy what I am selling. That is a huge hurdle to overcome. You know, just to go to someone and say, I think someone will buy this, I would definitely say, come and speak to me once you've sold at least a couple of. Let me speak to customers. Because part of the diligence is going to be speaking to the customer and saying, why did you buy? What did you think? Would you buy again? You know, so having a few sales under your belt, absolutely crucial. Obviously the business plan for me is something of it's a contradiction. Because I've never actually saw a business that did what it said it was going to do in its business plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a piece of Hans Christian Andersen. It's a piece of fiction. But you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's not because the people writing it don't believe it. It's because things happen in business. You know, can you predict 3 years in the future? No. Those who can are a lot wealthier than me.
Yes.
And therefore, the business plan has got to demonstrate, you know, so we're never going to talk about, in year 3 you say this because, you know, year 3, let's get through the week. But it does show that the entrepreneur has thought about things. They've got them covered. What are you going to do in this eventuality? So your business plan says it goes like this. What if it goes like this? And something I'm really keen when an entrepreneur sits in front of me is tell me about your failures. And I was speaking to Pierre Omidyar, one of the founders of eBay. Huge success. And he now invests in venture in Silicon Valley. And he says, when he asks entrepreneurs about their failures, if they haven't had them, he'll say, okay, go and have some, come back and see. I think it's such a positive statement because in the UK, we're a little bit reticent to talk about our failures, to actually say, if you're an entrepreneur, some point you're going to fail. I mean, I still have failures most of the time. I'm not, it is something, your first failure you think, God, you know, and every single successful entrepreneur I've ever met has had a failure, and it's how you deal with failure that defines you, not how you deal with success. So therefore, be honest, be prepared to talk about, I had this failure, here's what I learned, I didn't do it again. You know, you can't repeat your failures. No. But speaking openly about your failures is something that's really crucial.
Yeah, and it's a great way to really if you're interviewing an entrepreneur, that's a fantastic way to get them to start talking openly. And I'm sure it's the one question they haven't prepared for when they're when they're pitching to you. So how does there? I mean, you've asked that question since.
Yeah.
You asked that question, and often do you find that's the case? People are a bit stumbled at the beginning.
Yeah, well, I mean, the business plan does not talk about failure.
No.
The business plan, every business plan goes in the graph of sales and success goes left to right, upward only. That's not real life.
No.
This entrepreneurial journey is a roller coaster.
Let me ask.
And you've got to be emotionally ready for that. And this is why this isn't for everybody. Because a lot of the people who come through the support that we give, you know, if at the end of it we say to someone, you're actually not cut out, you would be great in this position, but you're not cut out to be the main person. That's sometimes hard to take, but it's gonna save years of anguish.
Absolutely. What I wanted to ask you on that note, you often see business plans, and we're not just talking about startups, but in this case I would like to, when you see the 5-year cash flow forecast, and from year 1 to year 3 it's red. And year 1 is particularly 6 to 7 figures sometimes in the red.
Oh, it's off the charts.
Year 2 is maybe now we've hit the late 5 figures. Year 3 it's now, you know, a few thousand to go. But then in year 4 we make 1 million. In year 5 we make 10 million. That makes no sense to me. For everything that you said, but people are putting this down all the time. What are your thoughts when you see those sort of projections?
Well, I think people have been programmed to do it because banks and, you know, in the days where banks did lend to startups, they needed to see that. They couldn't go to their credit committee and say, goodness, this cash flow's all over the place. No, we want to see something who's getting there. Well, yeah, but in real life, does it get there in this sort of? No, it doesn't.
No.
And therefore, I think engaging the entrepreneur in this debate and seeing how honest they are, or naive, is an important part. And therefore, helping and mentoring the entrepreneur through these things, you know, is pretty important.
Absolutely.
There are so many more better sources of funding now, more intelligent sources of funding who absolutely know. You know, we up in Scotland with the Scottish Government and the Royal Bank of Scotland came up with the Edge, Scot Edge, which was absolutely for this part, hardest to fund part, and when we interview the people doing the interviewing have been there, did it and done it. So there's no pulling the wool over their eyes. But they're also there to help. They're also there because we want people to get the money. But, you know, the people who are there are brutally honest about, you know, come on, we've been there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for that. It's good to get your insights on that. So let's talk now a little about internationalisation. So people, products and services, whether they founded them here in the UK or in other parts of the world, their dream is to have other people in other parts buying their product or service. What advice can you give to those who have that desire to create this international market for themselves?
Yeah. So first of all, make sure in timing that you've got your own home market well exploited before being taken the allure of international markets. Too many people go too quickly. That's the first point. It doesn't show lack of ambition. It shows nous to say, this, I understand this market and therefore I'm going to exploit it before I need to go somewhere else. Because the one thing an international market delivers is complexity. Different language, different currency, different culture, different, and it's not something that you're going to understand. You understand your home market, so make sure you've got a sound foundation there before going, because it'll take longer, it'll take more money, and it will just, the returns won't be as big. Those are 3 things that will happen when you internationalise your business. But if you've saturated your home market, or if you've got hell-bent on international expansion, then again, there's no sweeping rules here, because it depends on the product or service. When we've gone abroad, we've went with a partner who knows all these things about their market. So yes, we are giving up some of the upside, but we're taking care of some of the risk. So these are the risk-reward things that you've got to weigh up. And I would always go and give away some of the upside for a good local partner.
My last question for you, Sir Tom, and again, huge thanks for giving up your time for being here today. And it's about the end of the entrepreneurial journey for this company, which is exiting or selling your business on. It's something you did very successful at a young age, and were able to then take that amount of wealth you created and then look to build other businesses around. What should businesses be thinking about now when it comes to exit? Should we all be thinking about exiting? And secondly, what are some of the things we can be doing now to obtain the best result when we do eventually sell our companies on?
I would say you shouldn't be thinking about the exit. You should be thinking about building a brilliant business. And all the things that will make it highly attractive to someone else is if you've got the brand and the moat and great customers and great cash flow. All these things you would do to build an enduring business will make it attractive. I never had a thought about exiting. This was the only thing I'd ever done. It was my baby, and I'd never thought of exiting it. And it also made me very tough in the negotiation to sell, because I was a reluctant seller, so I got more money. Therefore, find something you're passionate about, build these enduring pillars of your business, and if you do want to exit, if you have these things, you will always be highly attractive to someone.
Absolutely. And when they first knocked on your door, how long was it from the first door knock or the first phone call to shaking hands and receiving the check?
Well, when my competitor, and remember that this was a very competitive business, we were knocking heads every day. So when my competitor phoned me to say, was I thinking of selling, I said, no, I'm going to buy you. But he was a public company, I was still private, and they had the finance, even though we were bigger than them. Therefore, something that I had never thought of, when I sat down with the cold towel and began to think of what I could do with this money, it wasn't that long. Typically, is there a typical time scale? It usually takes longer than anybody tells you. So if I'm trying to buy your business, I'm saying I'm going to do it quick, it's going to be no hassle. These are all lies. Yep. So if you're on the receiving end of this, you got to know that it's going to take a bit of time. They're going to rip the business to upways and sideways, and it's going to be disruptive. But from start to finish, 6 months. If somebody really wants it, 4 months. What about those time scales?
And sometimes even longer.
Sometimes people stop businesses for years. And then it depends how good a negotiator you are.
Yes. Excellent. So Tom Hunter, thank you so much.
Okay.
Great to have you in here today, and I really appreciate that insight.
And the best luck. I wasn't negative in the beginning, saying you've chosen to do something really difficult, because you have, but when it works, it is the best feeling in the world.
Absolutely.
So good luck.
Thank you so much.